Every month, I go through all the latest e-commerce ads news and bring you only the things that actually matter for growing your store. So this is actually the first edition of a new monthly series I'm doing, so if you do find this useful, let me know in the comments below and I'll keep this format coming. Alright, first up is huge news from OpenAI this month, as ChatGPT is going to have ads in it, and now we know how much they're going to cost, and the number might actually shock you. Plus there's a Google Ads campaign setting that has caused a lot of panic recently, but it turns out you've got way more control than most people think, and Google also just dropped an AI tool that actually knows your specific ads account, and it could save you hours of troubleshooting. There's a change to audience targeting that quietly makes niche stores a lot more competitive, and Microsoft just did something with AI that I think is genuinely going to change how advertising works in the future. If you're new here, I'm Daryl from Big Flare, and I've been running a Google Ads agency for over 12 years now and have spent over 10 million a year on e-commerce ads. So I know exactly what matters and what's just noise. And with that said, let's dive into it. Okay, so let's kick things off with the biggest story of the month. OpenAI has confirmed that ads are coming to ChatGPT, and we now know roughly what it's going to cost. The early pricing is set at around $60 CPM. That's $60 cost per 1,000 impressions. Now, let me put that into perspective. Meta's average CPMs tend to sit somewhere around $10 to $20. So ChatGPT ads are roughly 3 times the cost of advertising on Facebook or Instagram. And that's a pretty big number. And here's what makes it even more interesting from an e-commerce perspective. Right now, these ads are impression-based only. There's no conversion tracking. You can't see whether someone bought your product after seeing your ad. You get impressions and clicks, and that's pretty much it. So at this stage, it's really a brand awareness play, not a performance play. And at $60 CPM with no conversion data, this is not something most e-commerce store owners should be rushing into, at least not yet. Now, there are a couple of other details worth knowing. The ads will initially appear on ChatGPT's free tier and the lowest cost Go tier, so they're reaching the broadest possible audience. OpenAI is also keeping ads away from sensitive conversations, things like mental health or politics, and they're excluding users under 18. And here's the part that tells you the most about where this is headed. OpenAI is targeting big enterprise brands first. They're working through agencies and going after the big budgets. This isn't set up for smaller advertisers right now. But here's why I think you should still care. Think about where Google Ads was 15 years ago versus where it is now. Every major ad platform starts expensive and limited and then gets more accessible over time as they add better targeting, better tracking, and self-serve tools. ChatGPT has hundreds of millions of users. If OpenAI builds out proper conversion tracking and brings the CPMs down, this could become a genuinely useful channel for e-commerce. For now though, you don't need to do anything, but I'd recommend keeping an eye on this because AI platforms are clearly going to be a major advertising channel in the next few years. And the store owners who are paying attention now will be ready when the opportunity opens up. Alright, now let's talk about AI Max for search, because there has been a lot of confusion and honestly, a lot of unnecessary fear around this one. Ginny Marvin, who is the Google Ads liaison, so she's basically the official spokesperson for Google Ads, published a post on LinkedIn clearing up some big misconceptions. And there are 2 things she clarified that I think are really important to know. The first one is about AI overviews. A lot of people thought that you had to use AI Max to get your ads showing in AI overviews, and that's simply not true. Your existing search campaigns, your shopping campaigns, your Performance Max campaigns, they are all eligible to appear in AI overviews. So you don't need to rush into AI Max just because you're worried about missing out on those placements in AI overviews on Google. You're already eligible with what you've got. The second thing, and this is the big one, is about query expansion. Query expansion is the feature in AI Max that lets Google broaden the search terms your ads show for. And a lot of people were worried that you couldn't turn this off. Well, actually, it turns out you can. You can toggle query expansion off at the ad group level. You've also got location controls and brand controls at the ad group level too. So there's actually a decent amount of flexibility here that people didn't realize existed. Now, here's my honest take on this. I still think AI Max is very new, and I wouldn't recommend moving your campaigns over to it just yet. But it's good to know that if you do want to test it, you're not handing Google the keys completely. If you want to try it, here's what I'd suggest. Pick one smaller campaign, maybe one that's not your main revenue driver. Turn query expansion off to start with. Run it alongside your existing search campaigns and compare the results. You can always loosen the controls later once you've got some data and you're comfortable with how it's performing. Don't let anyone pressure you into switching everything over. Test it carefully, like you would any other new campaign type. Now, before we move on, if you're finding this useful and you want to stay on top of changes like these ones as they happen, not just once a month, you should definitely sign up for my free newsletter. Every week, I share the most important Google Ads updates and practical tips you can actually use in your store. Link is in the description below. All right, let's keep going. Okay, now here's something that I'm genuinely interested to see play out. Google launched 2 new AI tools called Ads Advisor and Analytics Advisor. Now, I know what you're thinking. Great, another AI chatbot. But hear me out, because these are actually different from what you might expect. The key difference is that these advisors are plugged directly into your ads account. They can see your campaigns, your performance data, your ad history, everything. So when you ask a question, you're not getting a generic textbook answer, you're getting an answer based on your actual data. Let me give you an example of where this could be really useful. Say you've got an ad that just got disapproved and you have no idea why. We've all been there, right? So instead of trawling through Google's help pages trying to figure out which obscure policy you've apparently violated, you can just ask your ads advisor. It'll look at your specific ad, check what triggered the disapproval, and tell you exactly what to fix. Analytics Advisor does a similar thing, but for performance changes. So if your traffic suddenly dropped last week and you're scratching your head trying to figure out why, Analytics Advisor can dig through your data and pinpoint the cause. Now, these are rolling out globally for English language accounts, so you might already have access. Now, I do want to give you a word of caution here. These tools are built by Google. They're designed to help you work within Google's ecosystem. So if you ask, should I increase my budget? Don't be surprised if the answer is yes. Use them for operational stuff like troubleshooting disapprovals, understanding sudden performance changes, or figuring out what happened with a specific campaign. But for actual strategy decisions, use your own judgment. My recommendation is simple. Next time you've got a disapproval that's confusing you or your numbers shift and you can't figure out why, try asking the advisor before you go down the rabbit hole of Googling it yourself. It might save you a lot of time. Okay, so this next one flew under the radar a bit, but I think it's quietly one of the most important changes from last month. Google lowered the minimum audience size requirements across the platform. Now, let me explain why this matters, especially if you sell something a bit more niche. For years, Google has been pushing everyone towards broader targeting, bigger audiences, more automation, let the algorithm figure it out. And for a lot of stores, especially ones selling widely popular products, that approach works fine. But if you're selling something more specialized, maybe luxury goods, maybe a niche product category, maybe something B2B, those big, broad audiences have been frustrating. You would try to create a really targeted customer list or a custom audience, and Google would say, sorry, not enough people in this audience. So that's all changing now. With lower minimum audience sizes, you can target smaller, more specific groups of people. Here's a practical example. Let's say you've built up a customer list of your top 500 buyers. These are the people who love your products. They buy them regularly and they have high average order values. Previously, that list might have been too small to use in Google Ads, but now you might be able to use it for targeting or for building a similar audience based on those top buyers. This is great news if you've ever felt like Google's targeting options were too blunt for your business. My advice here is pretty straightforward. Go back and think about any audience ideas you had that Google rejected before because the list was too small. Whether that's a customer match list, a custom audience, or a remarketing segment, it's worth trying again. All right, let's round things out by talking about what Microsoft is doing, because I think this is genuinely fascinating and it ties in nicely with what we were just talking about with ChatGPT ads. Microsoft announced something called brand agents and instant checkout for Copilot. And this is a completely different approach to advertising inside AI. Here's the basic idea. Instead of just putting ads inside an AI assistant, which is essentially what Google is doing with AI overviews, Microsoft is letting brands create their own AI representatives that live inside Copilot. So imagine someone is chatting with Copilot, asking it to help them find a new pair of running shoes. Your brand's AI agent can enter that conversation, answer their specific questions about your products, make personalized recommendations, and the customer can actually buy right there in the chat. They never leave the conversation. Now think about why this is interesting. Google's approach is basically taking traditional ads and fitting them into a new AI format. Microsoft is doing something fundamentally different. They are saying, what if the brand itself becomes part of the AI conversation? It's not about bidding on ad placements anymore, it's about creating an experience that the user actually wants to engage with. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't know yet how accessible this is going to be for smaller stores. Microsoft hasn't been super clear about whether this is available to everyone or just to big enterprise brands with massive budgets. But here's why I think you should pay attention. If brand agents work well on Copilot, you can bet that Google will build something similar eventually. These big platforms always copy each other's best ideas. So the stores that figure out how conversational AI commerce works now on Copilot might have a real head start when Google rolls out their version down the line. For now, my advice is to just keep this on your radar. If you're already running Microsoft ads, keep an eye on your account for anything related to brand agents. And if you're not on Microsoft ads yet, well, this might be another reason to start. And if all this talk about changes in the advertising landscape has got you thinking about making sure your Google Ads setup is as strong as possible, I've got a video that walks you through the best Performance Max campaign structure for e-commerce stores. It covers everything from how much to split your asset groups to which bid strategies to use at each stage of growth. I'll link it out right up here. Check it out. Good luck with your campaigns, and I'll catch you on the next one.